It's hard to get going again once you're...
Run the tape back where we leave off.
Well, I guess I had been thinking about the fact that I wanted to, maybe as to kind of help focus, sometime during this time, read what I had written. I think that, you know, what emerged as we began to talk, you just kind of laid some basic foundational kinds of things, and I kind of began to see this isolation thing is all about. And the moments alone in the bathroom, I think, were times to kind of run that through my head as that's a significant issue that I hadn't thought about before. Isolation, fear of isolation. And how that affects my relationship with my friends. Those friends I think that are especially close to me, that I have in the past used to, as a buffer maybe at times, against that isolation. The isolation in relationship with the family, which at one time acts as a buffer and another time acts as almost a perpetrator, you know, of the isolation, and dealing with the isolation of priesthood. So I really think I have some great fears of that continuing on for the rest of my life, and I just am kind of caught in a cycle of that kind of thing that's beginning, I think, to get at the root of what this is all about, and what I think what some of my pain has been from, and how I need to deal with that. I guess maybe that I do need to deal with it, you know, not that there's any one particular way.
Or maybe just face the fact that you're stuck with it.
Or that too. But I'm not sure I want to be, you know.
Oh, I don't think the wanting to be has anything to do with it. The question is, can you or can't you? I don't think if you wanted to be, wouldn't make any difference. That's just a, you know, fantasy we all carry around. The question is only whether you can make it, not whether you want it.
If I can make it with isolation?
Or without. You can break out of it. You can want to be married, but that has nothing to do with the results. The question is whether you make it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you wanted to be isolated. I don't think any of us does. And we all are. You're not going to die all alone. It seems kind of ridiculous. How could God do that to me?
Mm-hmm. Ridiculous, I guess, maybe an improvement. It provides some anger, you know,
Yeah.
that you're not quite sure even where to punch out at. And if I think our communication as a family is blocked by a lot of fear, or by how am I going to be accepted or rejected, or how is this going to be heard? And if you're constantly weighing what happens, I think that tends to be a real source of isolation. Because in any relationship, it seems that creates that barrier or the distancing from another, simply because of the fact that the communication isn't there to break that down, and so isolation takes place.
And the more successful you are in what you're good at, the more isolated you are.
You mean in terms of family relationship or profession?
Being a priest, or being your mother's confidant, or being a good caretaker for your 3 siblings. The more successful you are, the more alone you are. If you'd have failed and mother had to hire somebody else for a babysitter, you might have made it with the kids. Instead of not making it with the kids and not making it with the parents.
I guess I was fairly successful at taking care of them. They didn't burn down the house, so I
Because he wasn't alone most of the time. Linda was there with you too. We've forgotten about her.
I mean, I kind of took over after,
But that was, she was there much of the time.
yeah. And when she was babysitting, her and I never got along, which is interesting. Remember
Yes,
that? I just
knew
thought
you
of that.
never got along.
She was trying to control, and I knew better.
Was this an older sister?
No, it's a neighbor girl across the street.
Oh,
How much older than you?
She was 18 in 1965, and I was in 7th grade. She was 17 in 65, and I was in 7th grade, so there's probably about 7, 8 years difference.
Yeah, I know about it all of a sudden. When you were talking about babysitting, and she was there most of the time.
I had a crazy thought. Hadn't been for her, you might have been schizophrenic.
Well, that's kind of, sounds like a crazy thought. I don't know, how do you mean?
Well, isolation. This malignant isolationism is what craziness is all about. It sounded like the being grandiose and really Queen of the May wasn't quite available because she was always hanging around competing with you. Like a strange kind of play marriage that taught you about at least one other person, how to fight with them, and how you could get defeated.
And there may have been some truth in that. I had never thought of that before.
I've always had a strange feeling that one of the tragedies of my childhood was that somehow I always avoided getting beaten up. So I never knew how much I could stand. I was slow sneaking my way around. Sounds like she offered you that.
That sense of competition, anyway?
Or of being one down, inadequate fear, or part of a team that you weren't in charge of.
Maybe true.
You think Mother gave her some of the power that you should have had? She was older.
Probably at the time I felt that. I think
You're close friends today, though, aren't you?
Yeah, although we don't see each other, very rarely. But I do remember, though, at the time that she got married, feeling all tied up in that. Wedding experience being very...
Or she was married at, what, 18?
Yeah.
Which was a tragedy for her.
She found somebody, or thought at least at the time she did, that was going to be, her companion and friend.
Her way
and
out,
stuff.
really.
Unfortunately, that's what it was for her, but that's kind of what my perception of it was at the time, I guess. Confusion, or immature, sort of looking at that relationship maybe as being something more of that, because we certainly spent a lot of time with her. As we were growing up, she was always kind of around helping you take care of Ellen.
And the other two before Ellen was born, she was there. We had her around a lot. You remember her real well, don't you, Pat?
Babysitting?
Don't you?
I don't
remember?
either.
Don't you?
You know, I have very vague memories of her. When I think of when we were left, when you guys would go out, I think of Mike because we were so little. When Linda was there yet, and then Mike took over. Just real.
She and I had her last 20 years. From the time she was 12 on, I think.
Feel free to read it.
I think some of this makes some sense as to what we've been talking about today. Today I feel anxious, frightened, and upset. I know I am the reason why we are all gathered here, and I am thankful that you've all come. And yet it almost seems as if I have sort of a suicidal wish. Not because I wish to end my life, but because I am afraid my life as a family member, as a son and a brother, as someone who has a great need to be loved, is at great risk of being destroyed. I have long felt that I am many times loved on condition, not unconditionally loved. In other words, that people care about me because of who I am or how good I am. Further, if I display any behavior that looks as if I am not going to be a good boy, then people will be displeased with me and love me or like me less. I was told that I was good as long as I was sleeping when I was little, but when I was awake I was never sure. I have spent much of the last 31 years trying to be good. I was never more devastated, nor did I feel more isolated, it's interesting that I use that word, or cold, than when somebody hollered at me, took a physical or verbal swipe at me, or worst, when someone coldly ignored me. Today I feel the ultimate bad boy because my Claire, the grown-up adult, has called in the chips. We are all here because I asked you to be here, and in doing that, I sort of have violated the rules of our family. I am finally challenging our behavior. I am getting out my anger and my hurts, and I am desperately telling all of you that I love you, but I cannot take the tension of our family life anymore. 15 years ago, last Saturday, we as a family buried the last person in our family that I ever felt completely open with, Mom's father, Grandpa Pete. 4 years before that, we buried the other true friend of mine, Dad's mother, Grandma Kathy. I did not cry at either of one of their funerals, but I have cried ever since for both of them. When Peter died, I felt the depths of isolation and loneliness. I got very sick, which now I know was a sign of my grief. And then, as I had previously planned, I left the house and went to Holy Name Seminary. I have often thought Mom had two great losses that month of August of '69. She lost two confidants, two people she could always talk to. One was dead, and the other abandoned her to go off to the seminary. I think we've always lived in fear of losing each other, and so we have desperately clung to one another as tightly as possible, and it has at times almost destroyed us. The fear has destroyed, that fear has destroyed or almost destroyed every friendship that I have ever had. All through grade school I dreamed of having a peer friend, but the only friends I could safely have were my grandparents. They were easy to cling to. I could wrap myself around them and feel safe. I so longed to have someone my age to like me. Old people get sick and die. Young people, they decide they like someone better and move on. Besides all of this, I felt from early on that I was different. How? I don't know. I just know that I was different. And when I did find out the answer to that question of how I was different, I damn near died of fright, because I was sure I would be rejected by everyone. Every single person whom I had worked so hard to have them like me. Then whenever in my teens or 20s, when I tried to be my own person or individual, I felt that I was tripped or trapped by the family, especially Mom and Dad, who wanted me to stay the same, not to venture too far out from the family. And when I cried for freedom and wanted to search wildly for my own life, I felt that Mom and Dad fought against me. I was to lie down and be quiet, and the apron strings seemed to me to be tied tighter. We were bonded closer than ever. The bonding seemed to restrict my freedom. I felt I wasn't free to love them, family, and I felt that if I wasn't always showing my love, which was expected, I would be in trouble. With this good submissive behavior, Dad and Mother no longer had any fears about losing me. I would always be around. And remaining tied to them, I no longer had to fear that I would lose them, that I would be cast out from their world into a dark world, alone, unloved, and cut off. And then the next part is what I would like to see changed in the family. Do you want me to go on?
Sure.
What I would like to see changed in our family, I would like to see the restrictive holding that we have all done for so long end, so that we can freely grow close together as adults, as friends, who are people who love each other. I would like to see Dad and Mother grow even closer in communication and love, so that they can really enjoy life together. I would like to see them stop parenting. I am 31 years old, and I don't need someone to watch over my behavior. I need a father and mother who are my friends. Friends love and support each other. They don't live in constant fear of intervention or disapproval. I would like to have my family first accept me as my Claire, to accept me for who I am, and if they can, to love me. I don't want to share your love with the entire Roman Catholic Church, because that doesn't leave me too much left. I feel that sometimes I am considered good only because I am a priest. Priesthood is an okay life, and I'm happy doing what I think I do the best, being a priest. But priesthood seems to have thrown up barriers in my own family. Seminary and priesthood distanced me from my brothers and sisters, only because I used it as a way of gaining false acceptance. Everyone likes Father, I thought, so that was one way to make sure everyone would always like me. I have found out that some people don't like Father. They're always bitching at me. Go away. And because Mom and Dad, without meaning to, allowed this very public vocation to make me look good, so everyone else looked better, supposedly Pat and Mary Kay and Ellen. And I would like to see us also be a warm, loving, open family, willing to accept anyone for who they are, to be understanding and to be kind, so that when new friends or in-laws are presented into the family, we don't, as children have to worry about them being judged, or that others don't think that we are some type of a family living in a fortress trying to keep them out.
Do you have a sense of your own part in this? That if they went through some of this change that you're asking for, it'd be very hard for you not to push them back into the old frame?
In that I've kind of helped maintain this whole system that we've been living through.
Well, everybody belongs to it, you know. If you happen to play first base, and if you stop playing first base, somebody else would have to play.
Yeah.
Good Carl.
Play first base.
I was never too good at catching fly balls. I guess I can see that that would be something that I might, a trap I could fall into, is to just reset this, you know, using my role as first child and sort of on this older part of the team, the older part of the family, to just kind of reorient us all in a totally different, or being the responsible one, I suppose, to orient us into new roles. Being the person that's just reassigns the roles that we've all been playing.
It'd be hard. As Dad and Mother get older, it might be easier. They might not be so anxious to have a good little boy. Or maybe Pat could get gooder. You could be delinquent.
Screwed.
Yeah, that's
You know, the way I read this, I think you're unhappy because we wouldn't accept some of your friends. Is that it?
that's a part of it. I think it's a major part of it, Dad. And I think there's also part of a way we've been living life and doing family over the years that's had its effect on all of us. What do you think?
I suppose it is.
Do you think that's the major issue?
Well, like you said, I think it's a big part of it. It's an awful big part of it. What do you think?
Well, I think it concerns him more than it ever did any of the other three.
Yeah.
He could have cared less. What do you think? Did you care whether we liked all your friends or not?
Yeah. I mean, I think everybody cares about, you know, about I don't know what the word is.
Approval?
Yeah. In a lot of different things, not even just friends. But I think that's the way it is.
What about you, Guy?
I think that's true. But, to say that we really don't care, I think it's just the degree of how much we care. You know, I think Mike obviously, I think, cares much more about your approval than I do. You know, I still, I think everybody wants the approval from their parents to a certain extent, to approve that the way their life is, their friends, and other people that are close to them. But you know, you still have to live your own life, you know, and if no matter what anybody else thinks, if they're important to you, that's the most important thing.
When you think about what anyone else thinks, you're not necessarily saying just parents, you're saying other people too, or just parents?
No, other people too. Other people in you know, your peer group, people that you work with. You know, I think that's all important. Depends on, you know, the profession. Well, I think it's in every type of setting.
Mm-hmm.
But I think more importantly, your parents.
So you're saying that it bothers some people more than it does others? Is that what you're saying?
That's my opinion.
I always kind of felt like the rebellious one. That it mattered. I would be lying if I say it didn't matter what my parents thought of my friends. But it's kind of funny because I thought, you know, I'm going to have the friends I want to have. And if you don't like it, that's okay, but that doesn't matter to me if they're still going to be my friends. But yet I guess it, you know, it always does chime in there. That it does make a difference. But I just went about my own way and had who I want as for my friends.
I'd just like to add one comment. I'm glad your parents approved of your friends.
They stop any time now.
Just thought I'd throw that in. Getting back to this isolation thing, I guess being married for 2 years, I guess we really realized how much we needed one another. You know, if we've had a hard day at work or whatever, you know, we have to come home and, you know, vent out this frustration. What does Michael go to as a priest? That's why.
We've talked about that a lot.
That's what, as I said before, it's almost, you know, the unfair pressure.
And his
as a priest.
friendships, because he doesn't have a husband or a wife, or you don't have that designated person that everyone knows is your closest person, that his friendships with others are probably tighter, more intense than maybe the friendships that we would have, because he needs that just as much as we all do. Maybe that's what's frightening, that he reaches out to a friend for that closeness that everyone has to have, or maybe not everyone has to have, but what most of us have to have, that intense understanding that you're going to be my friend no matter what you do to me. I still love you. Or what I do to you.
Very good.
Don't forget, this is now August 30th. Time it from here.
Mark that down.
Well, I think that what Carl and Mary Kate speak to is very true about the isolation thing. And when you add together the relationships that I had or didn't have as a child and an adolescent, there's a fear of that continuing kind of isolation going on, and I happen to have chosen a lifestyle where that's a particular kind of requirement of that lifestyle at this point, that quote unquote the legitimized structure of marriage is not particularly looked favorably upon by the one who sits in Rome. On the other hand, Pat, I think, said something very accurately about my overwhelming need to have your approval. That I just opened that up to you, almost as if to expect that I wouldn't get it, you know. And normally I got it in the beginning of every one of my major relationships, my major friendships in my life. But it always seemed like something happened. And then the whole world just kind of, the approval was withdrawn, and we went to war. Then the relationship ended, and then we had a truce. So the next time I started a friendship again, a friendship developed. And it seemed like a pattern, you know, that we all followed. And I did have this need that, and I don't know why it is, but I just had this need that you would approve of my friends. And somehow in that way that I would get approval from you, you know, that would make me look better. See, I really can go out and make my own friends. And in many regards, it's probably not, you know, I'm not saying that in a blaming sort of way. I'm just saying it, it's kind of the way the pattern operated, you know.
Did you set yourself up for failure?
I wonder, Carol, if that's not what I did sometimes.
Sort of sounded like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think while approval was important from my perspective as I look at Pat, Mary Kate, and Ellen, and when it wasn't there, it was maybe difficult for them too. For some reason, I seem to feel that more acutely.
You feel they were jealous? That they felt that you took your friendship away from them when you gave it to anyone else?
And very much so. That's the type of, I think, of language that I was hearing at times. You know, you don't have any time for us. All you do is have time for that person or this person. You won't come home anymore. You don't care about the family anymore. You just are always with that person and that, you know.
You never did fight that until today?
I think we tried to fight about it, but we never got anywhere. I always sensed that I lost. We never discussed it. We never discussed it, and if we tried to, it was always, you're just not hearing us. It's like talking to a brick wall. That's a quote.
Direct.
And somehow it always seemed like that meant that I loved them less. And I didn't. I didn't in any way, shape, or form. Maybe I didn't say that I loved them more. Maybe I should have said more to Dad that I loved him. I've been trying to do that lately, but maybe I should have said that more through the periods of time to reassure them of my love. But it seemed like I just had this expectation that they understood that. Presumptions lead to problems, and I guess maybe that was part of the problem.
How did Pat get away with this same kind of triangulation jealousy?
In my view, he left town. And disappeared into university. I could move to Rome.
Well, he was home as much as you were, though. And that period of time, you were at St. John's.
I was much easier to keep track of, though, because I was in seminary.
Really? I don't think so.
You always knew where I was,
Oh, really?
most of the time.
You believe that, Wilbur? He was in seminary, too.
Always know where you're supposed to be.
Not necessarily if you're there.
That's a different age too. Though. My seminary experience and his.
You could always find me, though. Eventually.
Eventually.
100% of the time, but you always could get me.
No, but you were a long, long ways away.
That's true.
That was what? 8-hour drive or more? During those years, Pat, you were in university, weren't you?
Mhm.
Yeah. Mary Kay, too?
I think more was expected out of Mike, though.
Mhm.
That would be normal.
I would think for a couple of reasons. First, that he's the oldest, and second, that he was in seminary.
And maybe possibly one other quality, that he's more responsive. That he dares.
Well, I think though us as brothers and sisters, see, he always had that over us. That part, I think, in my own thinking, that was always taken care of. Mike was responsible. That's enough.
You didn't have to.
I didn't have to. Which I guess is true, isn't it? So.
I guess we willingly gave that to him.
Yeah, we did.
So he had enough for 4 kids worth than one.
Right. You got it. No, but I think he had another gift, and I don't think you heard what I was saying. He had the gift to be here today to ask for something in the family that could be more precious than what was still here. He was the most responsive. He had a capacity for feeling and for wanting to touch, to belong, to make richer. That's the thing I keep hearing.
You're saying then that running away to seminary is less escaping than running away to college?
Yeah.
Because in a sense you're worshiping the Father, so you belong to the family in a sideways way.
You're talking about God the Father? Yeah. It's a safe system of withdrawal, but it can be. It's predictable. Most of the time.
Are you saying you went to the church to get something that you weren't getting at home? What's
It'd
that?
be easy to say, it would be easy to say no to that, but I'm not sure. You know, I would say that, no, I guess I'm just not sure. I don't know.
I was sort of trying to think of that in terms of the Ritz crackers.
The Ritz crackers.
Don't quite make it.
I don't know.
I think ours was a little more. We used to cut the bread up at home to take it up to the church, and I usually ate a little before I took it on. Not sure they ever found out, but I was lucky. You're talking about the good boy made me wonder about pride. How much were you a victim of the family's pridefulness? Do you have any sense of that?
I remember that was a word that, an expression that Grandma Mary used a lot. And I remember it's an expression that you've used a lot. Have a little pride in yourself. Shape up, whatever the kind of thing. I'm not sure if I understand you entirely, but maybe that might be in reference to the fact that I elevated a great deal the sense of family pride by my ordination.
Yes, yes. Or by being a good boy way back in the early days.
I think one of the things that we've talked about, or at least it's come up in discussion once before, is that I think that Mother and Dad at their family in the same way that they have done in the past since sort of we've gotten out of high school, and that is with a good deal of pride from the standpoint that we all were educated and all have good jobs and we're kind of making our way in the world, and that they preserved us from the furor of everything that was going on in all the other families in both sides. And that the other family units, the extended family units, are littered with broken marriages and people who've fallen away from the church and are very angry, and problems with parental relationships and wild and crazy behavior, and just a whole swirling kind of thing that they very carefully, cautiously, and by being people that they were, preserved us from, which also helped build the fort up.
So there was an isolationism even in the family.
In a way,
Or an expectation.
yeah. But it was funny because we always had the family invading that. Relatives coming from all over the place, staying at our house, because we take everybody on. But as it got better, and as the feelings got better when those people left, and we felt more strongly about the fact that how much better it felt to see them leave than to see them come. The opportunities became less and less that we ever invited or set up opportunities to have family members there. Also, I think at times when warfare had erupted between members of Dad's family and the Clare side, or the Camerons all lived in the area anyway, there was less and less getting together, and then there would be a truce, and then everybody get together again, and then they'd stay together for a week, or they'd stay friends together for a week, or half a year, or whatever, and then all of a sudden an outbreak would take place. And I think in a way they wanted to preserve us from that. They called us to be a family that was closely knit and cared for each other and communicated well. They tried to get us to be that way, and yet somehow we always kept circumventing that. I always get the feeling like I was sometimes the major bollixer up of the works. That by somehow my involvement with church and other things, they looked at me often as being someone who had distanced himself from the family out of my own accord, and why are you doing this?
Maybe you did it for them and then they blamed you for doing it.
Being involved with church and friends and that kind of stuff. At times, and I was kind of nutty for doing it. I mean, I was running out constantly on Christmas Eve, decorating church, running church services and other things, and yet I was gone a lot. I missed a lot of that, you know. And I think that was certainly something that at least I've heard at times from the three of you, is that I distanced myself more and more and farther away from them as I got more and more involved with the church.
This pride was making me suddenly think about a family we saw years ago, an Amish family with a granddaughter who had anorexia and was close to dying from underweight. And it turned out that the problem was much bigger than we could conceive of. If she left the faith, the whole family would be kicked out of the community. So she was carrying not just disapproval from the family or the community for herself, but the whole family would be forbidden their membership in the family. And I was wondering if that was part of what was going on with you guys.
Well, I don't, at least from my perspective, I don't know what anybody else thinks, but that there had been so many religion problems in the family, the rest of the extended family anyway, that we were kind of the beacons of stability as far as religion went, you know. And it wouldn't be that we'd be kicked out, we'd be kind of joining the rest of the troops.
And you were too open about it. The Catholic family, I saw once where they had this kind of problem. They were all good Catholics, but all of the kids had married Protestants, 6 of them or 7. Sort of the rebellion was undercover. Unlike with you guys, the war was much more honest, even in the extended family. How did you girls keep from being nuns?
We were asked that many times.
Yeah, we were.
Because
I made sure Mary Kay wasn't.
I don't think we ever pushed that.
Sacrificial lamb.
That's right.
Did you think?
I remember, you know, just as part of going to Catholic school, you know, if you wanted to get on the good side of your teacher, you'd say you wanted to be a nun because she was a nun, you know. But that was like 2nd grade, 3rd grade stuff. And then I remember being asked that a lot, but it just never really came up.
You always think about it at least once, maybe somebody will.
No.
But you were growing up during all that transition, though. And so
Right.
many of them were leaving, and that was never stressful.
That was never a pressure, ever.
No.
Did you try to get Pat to be a priest?
Yeah, we can get you one.
You just wasn't cut out for it.
He's out on the golf course.
People ask me that. I give them, well, they used to when you get to seminary. I give them the same reaction I just got here. I'd laugh. I'd say, you're kidding, aren't you?
I didn't have to do that. That's his job. His responsibility.
We've got that taken care of. Well, thanks for overkill.
Would we love to carry on the Claire name?
That's right. Good point.
But I think that has something to do, the close family sense of things, as far as this situation with friends go, you know. And most acutely and recently, I think that was the situation between Larry and I. Developing a friendship over 2 years ago that became very close and was a very, very important thing in my life. And having a lot of joy over the fact that here was a new friend somebody was very, very close to and was very special to me, and having sort of approval from really all the members of the family. And then having that withdrawn and seeing that deteriorate caused a deterioration not only with my relationship with the entire family, but also with my relationship with Larry. Because in the end, what had happened was that I didn't deal with the family. Once the approval was gone, I lived in such fear of the family, and I was so angry that my personality changed, my behavior changed. Whenever the subject came up, I was just furious and full of rage. And instead of fighting out the battle with this sudden withdrawal of approval with Mother and Dad, and I thought it was futile. I didn't think there was anything anymore I could do about it. And all of a sudden their minds had changed, and you know, they just decided that that's the way they wanted to think about it. That I felt once again very isolated. By rejecting that friendship, I felt that I had been deeply rejected. By them wanting me to be home more, and with Larry less, I lost all interest in going home and getting in the middle of all this. It was just one thing after another, to the point that, like I said, my personality changed, and so what happened was, instead of fighting the battle out with the folks, which I found to be a very personally devastating experience, to the point that I thought I was losing my marbles completely, I fought the battle out with Larry instead. And I wouldn't listen to what he was telling me. All I would do, and what we did was just, we found our relationship gradually deteriorating to the point to which, essentially, about the beginning of May, it was, for all intents and purposes, destroyed. And then I crashed. In the meantime, the truce had been declared between Mother and Dad and myself. Christmas was a very difficult experience for me because I wanted Larry to come home with me. We got into a fight on the phone Christmas Eve over that issue. And I came home and tolerated Christmas and got out as soon as I could, and then I didn't go home again. Part of it was punishment, and part of it was all this anger that I was having a hell of a time dealing with. And then around the 1st of March, Grandma started getting sicker. She had a heart attack. It was the week of confirmation. There was 1,000 things going on in the parish. Mother called me and we hadn't talked on the phone for quite a while. Ellen during that time had been running interference. Pat, one time when he asked me, what in the hell is going on? And I was getting phone calls from Mary Kay occasionally as the thing just kept erupting worse and worse. And I was just ignoring the whole thing and withdrawing. And Grandma got sick and Mother and I talked about it. It was important that as we entered this final phase of her life that I responded in my role of oldest son, helping her deal with this, what was going to be happening, bringing in the religious perspective and all of that. And I knew that that was my role. I wanted to be a part of it. And as the situation deteriorated, I was happy that at least the truce was declared and we could work on this project together as far as preparing Grandma for death and dealing with what was inevitable. And when she first went to the hospital, she was in for like 7 days, I think, when she had a heart attack. And we had talked on the phone, but I didn't go see her. She was out about a week and a half, I believe, and then she went back in with
A little longer
stroke.
than that, I
Was it
think.
longer?
More like 2 weeks, 3 weeks.
3 weeks, I think, about
I'm
in
not
between
sure.
hospitalization and she had a stroke.
Then she had a stroke, and then I went down and gave her the sacrament of the sick, and we talked for quite a while, Grandma and I did. I went over to the house that night after I got done at the hospital. Mother and Dad were eating dinner. We were all more than pleasant. It was just a really nice kind of reunion after a period of not seeing each other for a while. And then I went home for Easter, and Easter was real nice. And Mother and I went to see Grandma, who was by that time in the nursing home. And I became convinced and told Mother on the way home that she would not live during my trip to California, which Larry and I were going on, which had been a big source of contention earlier. And we were going out to see Dad's sister, and both Dad and Mother, I think, disapproved very highly of us going out to California together. And there were problems with that involved, but I just decided we were going to do it anyway. So we set up the funeral arrangements. Nothing was really said too much about California other than the fact you're going, and that's nice, have a good time. And there was no fighting about it, which I appreciated. We set up all the funeral arrangements and got everything organized that if Grandma died while I was on vacation, the funeral would wait until I got back because of the fact that to fly home would have cost more than the ticket, both back and forth. When we got out there, we found that my uncle Dad's brother-in-law was very sick with alcoholism and other things that was, to a very large extent, a major out-of-control illness. And my aunt was having a very difficult time. And we tried to be as supportive as we possibly could to her, and it was in the end a difficult vacation. While I was out there, besides all this other stuff going on, and then going through the process of trying to get Chuck admitted into alcoholic therapy and working with the doctors out there, and we were also kind of stuck in Camp Pendleton Beach. We couldn't get on or off the base where we were staying without one of the two of them, and whenever we were with them, it was fighting and war, and we should have just gotten out of there, and we didn't. And I thought Marie, really needed me and needed Larry's support at that time too, and so we dealt with it. Chuck was going into treatment unbeknownst to him, and intervention was going to be done the next day, the day after I left. And then, while I was out there, the Monday after we got out there, Grandma died. And all the funeral arrangements that we had made and thought that the family had agreed to came tumbling apart with one uncle, my mother's middle brother, who had, I think, never really resolved his relationship as far as I can understand with his mother. Just one kind of apeshit. Bluntly.
That was such a good word to describe it.
Too many graphics?
And so we fought that battle out. Wilbur was very involved with
Wilbur's
that.
help.
And then we came back, and Larry helped me get all the church stuff I needed ready for the funeral, and went down and he did all the decorating of the church. We got the casket in there and got the whole thing set up, and the process of the funeral was very good. The liturgy went well. I preached a good homily and I was happy with it. But from that point on, my uncle had declared that he would never speak to me again and have anything to do with my family, which was a very big change of behavior because he had also, like my parents, he and his wife had also followed me through the steps of seminary, been at almost every event, and had come driven all the way to Minnesota to see me, and had always kind of gotten involved with my, priestly formation and all that stuff. However, he had a very different relationship with the three of them, which was a very negative relationship. I think they have very negative feelings of him. My feelings were much different. And then, after all that pressure and tension, the funeral was off, it was just very obvious that my relationship with Larry had crashed. And I came home, I launched myself into the work of my pastor's 25th, which I was in the middle of organizing. I was going from one big project to another. And Larry and I worked on that project together quite a bit. The night after that project was finished, the depression that I'd been feeling and stuff was so intense that finally Bill, Larry, and myself stayed up until 4:30 in the morning trying to talk this out. And the seeds were sown, I think, then for this day. I never have felt so close to losing my sanity. I've never been more angry at myself for what I did to destroy my relationship with Larry, my friendship with Larry, or for allowing other people in to have that great of an effect on me. And at times the rage kind of surfaces. Dad and Mother were talking beforehand, and when I asked them today if they would participate in this, which I always felt so relieved when they said they would. I was very worried that they wouldn't. And Dad said, we talked about the situation with Larry, and he said that to me, if I'm quoting you right, if I'm not telling me, that you were afraid that you were going to lose me, and that you were losing me. And
you said you didn't want to talk about it.
I wanted to wait until we were with Dr. Whitaker, because it was the dynamite issue. So, there have been periods where I have felt isolation to the point that I have caused myself, and I think a good deal of it I caused myself, or allowed to happen to me, and that others have participated in, which in the end I don't. I mean, I'm not walking around with a great deal of bitterness towards all kinds of people. There's a certain amount of anger involved. That made me very much despair and made me feel terribly alone. And while I know that I could have run back to the family, it seemed like if I did that, I'd run back right into the whole mess again. We'd live in a truce, and the truce would, new friendship would start, and away we'd go again. I just couldn't do that anymore. I was 31 years old, and I somehow needed to bring about some sort of change in my own life so that we could have a relationship as adults. That the parenting would stop and somehow we could be friends. And that was the most important thing to me, I guess, to go back before I ever got myself involved with another friendship or anything else again. And I know that there's an objective sort of way of looking at this, that one might think, Michael has so much time, the parish takes the first amount of his time, the family should take the second, what's left. And if there's any time for friends afterwards, he should kind of dole it out. And that's kind of what the feeling I've had. Or the expectation of what my life would be like. That's not the way my life is. I need, other than the family, one or two very close friends that I gain love and support from. And I have to have the freedom to do that, but I don't want to have to do that while I'm also worried about the fact that I'm going to be putting you in a situation as family that you're either feeling jealous or concerned, or that somehow in the midst of me having another relationship, my communication with the family breaks down. That, you know, everybody gets angry with one another. Seems like I can straighten out everybody else's messes, but I can't straighten out my own damn messes, you know?
Join the group.
That's different.
Yeah.
I had a strange flashback feeling that you were talking about you and your mother and father and Peter. That was the friendship they really wouldn't forgive me for. In a strange kind of way, you became an adult belonging to your mother and father's generation and turned your back on them by going to your grandfather. And they've still never forgiven you for it. Well, maybe Peter and Catherine both.
My relationship with both of those two was different, and I think we'd acknowledge that than any other grandchild in the entire family, on either side.
Oh, I think so.
I mean, nobody else was that close to them.
No.
Spent that much
But
time.
at that point in time in their two lives, they depended on him, so don't you think?
Oh, sure.
They took up all their time, both of them. But that didn't make, we were all so busy at that time that I never felt anything
I
that,
didn't either.
we were so busy with everything else,
Didn't
trying to
bother
make a
me.
living and keeping the rest of us all going.
In fact, I was glad to see it when he was with them.
Yeah. Then
Maybe
we
it was
moved-
different because they were family. They were related. You know, maybe that was a difference that these other, because it seemed like whenever there was a problem with a relationship that Mike had, it wasn't with family relationships, closeness, it was with a friend. I don't remember any tension with that, with the relatives.
Did you have any feeling like that about Carl? Their sense of your deserting them?
At times. I can remember one royal battle that I feel that where Carl and I had a fight, and we were going to go with his mother for a weekend, and I wanted to go, but yet I was going back and forth because we had this fight. And they didn't want me to go. And in the end, I decided to go. And holy hell broke loose. And it took a long time to get over that. That happened in Labor Day and took until November, or Christmas time, before Carl felt he could even come to our house again. And that hurt deeply because I loved him deeply then. somehow we resolved it.
I don't know how the hell you raise a family if you can't express your opinion.
Yeah, that's important to express your opinion, but
Some little thing comes up that you don't like, then you get mad. What are we supposed to do? I thought we did a pretty damn good job of raising our kids.
I think you did
In fact,
too.
I'm kind of proud of it.
You got 4 pretty good ones.
That's what I figured.
That's not, you know, I think you did too. That's not the problem.
God, we make mistakes.
I guess we wouldn't be human if we didn't.
Mhm.
I'm
Then
sure
what the
our
hell
parents
we-
made
Then
mistakes.
what the hell's
with us.
all the bitching about?
I'm still trying to decide which two are the good ones and which two are the bad.
Which one you eat first? Which one you can catch?
I think a problem, you know, that I could see, I guess that was the closest, you know, that whole thing, I try and put that out of my mind, that whole battle. But I think the thing that,
You still haven't forgiven them.
well, I've forgiven them. You know, I forgive them, but the thing that it hurts is that the tension and the anger and the yelling that could have been avoided if we just would have talked as adults. We could have talked it out calmly, and there wouldn't have to been Hiroshima. In fact, tempers flare. People don't hear what you're saying. And that could have been avoided. That's what caused the hurt.
It seems to me that what we're dealing with and what we're talking about today is not that you did a poor job in raising us. I don't feel that. We're taking a look back at how our relationships sort of all developed and things that we can remember to understand why, at least in my life, I'm finding it so difficult to adjust to adulthood. Now, why I find it so difficult for us to adjust to adult relationships.
Are you speaking for all of them? All of your kids?
I only can speak for myself,
No,
but I don't.
you said for yourself.
For yourself.
That isn't my feeling either. Is I'm thankful for the parents that I have. When you see other families, and in my job I see that a lot. You know, that's not the issue at all.
And it's that I want to become, I would like to be an adult member of this family that is accepted for who I am, if that's possible, and that we can give each other the freedom to be friends with each other.
What do you want us to do?
Play in separate forces.
That's right.
What's that story about the guy who got back late in the Sunday golf game? And his wife said, where in the hell were you? He said, well, it was terrible. He says, my best partner dropped dead on the first hole. And I was drag him and blow, drag him, and it took a hell of a long time.
That's a terrible show.
Seems like we just have a hard time talking, I guess.
Or a hard time forgiving. I was suddenly thinking of Northern Ireland. Was on like a religious war was going on.
Well, I think the most important thing is how can we help you? What do you want us to do? How do you want us to change? What can we do to help you? That's the most important thing. If we've done something that is hard on all of you for, we'd like to know what it is. You know. And if you feel it's just for you, that's the problem, well, we should know what it is. If we make life too difficult for any of you, we should know that we are doing it.
It seems like we come to this stage of, you tell us what to do,
No, I think too, another part of the problem is that through the years, I especially have been so tied down. The only time we got away is if we went to see one of you, either Pat up at Madison or Mary Kay, or did something with Ellen or did something with you. Or immediate family things. It's about all we did because we were so tied down with either grandma or somebody, And maybe we just spent too much time in your lives. Do you think that's the problem?
Well, it's not that we didn't enjoy you. It's not that I never didn't not enjoy the time that we spent together. I'm not saying that at all,
Well, I certainly didn't think it was that bad.
That isn't it, Dan.
I thought we got along pretty good. Jeez. It's like Mother says, what do you want us to do? And I said it before too. What shall we do? How can we change?
It seems like that's what I've been in the process of doing all my life, is trying to change the family.
Maybe that's the problem.
Oriented in new directions.
Maybe you should just think about Mike and do what Mike wants to do.
It would be nice if we could be friends in that process, kind of go along the course of life together instead of constantly being at each other.
I can only think of very few occasions that we were at each other.
Like the whole last year.
That was one problem and neither one would give in.
Maybe that's what it is, because I heard the same thing when your daughter was talking about that episode of hers. That neither one had given in. She said she'd forgiven you, but I wasn't sure I believed it.
I don't think she has either.
And I assume that must be true all the way around.
Be.
That these hurts just hang on and never heal.
I didn't even know it was there. Did you?
Oh, I've seen symptoms of it before.
Be help to have it come on your grandchildren.
Mm-hmm.
I hear it as something that's the same but different, I think. I hear you asking for a kind of acceptance from each other that says we care about you and you are now at a point where you make your own decisions and we accept that for you. I think I hear that more than anything else, that you're worried, that you're concerned about growing up where you can make your own decisions by yourself without hurting someone. That's a nice way of saying it. But what it says more than that is, can we be adults with adults? Do we dare to be?
And, you know, it reminds me of a line from On Golden Pond. I'm a responsible adult. Every place else, you know, with responsibility of speaking to thousands of people every week. And yet, what seems like when I come home, and at times, I don't know, it's always this way, I don't know what the hell, but that I'm a little boy trying to be good again, you know? And that when we get in these angry fights, like we have been in the last year, I don't deal with things as an adult, as a professional person. I begin to deal with things like a teenager again, and we begin to fight this out. We don't talk to one another like adults. It's, you know, what the hell? And then all of a sudden, you know, Dad, you look hurt. And, you know, and you close in on yourself. It's too hard. I can't talk to you then, you know. It's, you know, all it is this just anger coming out between us. And I don't want to do that. I want to talk. I want to sort things out. But you get so upset, you know. And that's, and then I feel like I'm so sorry I made you upset. I'm so sorry I got you mad. I want to make you now better. I retract everything I said, and now just so you're not upset. And I feel guilty, and I feel. And so it's hard for me then to share things with you, to talk things out with you, to be your friend. And other times we can talk and go on and on and on about things. And it's just fine. But it's that explosive kind of anger. And then when Mother and you join together on something, I cannot win.
You can't always win. You gotta
I don't
lose
even,
too.
but nobody's even here. Well, why do we have to be winning and losing?
That's
you know?
right. That's right.
But we never can compromise. It's always, I'm going to win, or you're going to win, And we're gonna fight this battle out until somebody wins.
Not really listening to each other.
Then aren't you wrong and we're wrong too? It's a two-way street.
I don't know if anybody's right or wrong. It's not the issue. That we're just trying to talk something out, you know? Trying to understand each other. Trying not to change the other person, but just simply accept that person, accept me, who I am. And if you only see your role as changing me and making me a better person, then we're not friends. We're parent and child. And you're 60 and I'm 31, and we're not going anywhere but backwards in a big hurry. And I don't know how this affects anybody else, but it's become devastating to me.
I think in my life I value both of their opinions very much. What they have to say, or I wouldn't ask. But I'm still going to use what they say and then make my own decision. I'm not going to. That's how I have to deal with it. But yet I get caught up in the same thing. Feel bad if I don't agree.
I don't know why you should.
I know. That's not your problem.
I mean, we all have our own opinions.
I know.
And it's good to go and ask somebody else. You don't have to take their opinion.
But then when we don't agree, or when we have a difference of opinion, it's always conflict. It's never just acceptance. That's your opinion, that's fine. This is my opinion, that's fine. And maybe there's some way we can compromise between our opinions. Maybe there's not. But if we can't, that's fine. You know? I remember you yelling at me when I went back out looking for a car again. Of course, that wasn't the issue.
No, that wasn't the issue.
But why the hell do you want to get rid of that car? As it turned out to be, it was the most important thing that I did financially this whole last year, because I was being robbed by Chrysler. But the issue was,
I'm still driving your old car.
Should have never gone shopping for that Chrysler. Much better shopping for cars of my own. But what the dynamite issue was that you were angry about my relationship with Larry. And
I wasn't the only one, Mike. I wasn't the only one. Mary Kay, Ellen, Pat.
Don't get me into that. I wasn't.
You put the whole blame on to me.
I'm not putting it all on you. I don't mean to say
I wasn't
that.
the only one. You talked to Pat, you talked to Ellen, you talked to your mother.
Tell me, we're all here. We never have to ever talked about this.
Well, I think the problem was specifically that we rarely ever saw you that whole time. Rarely.
Once you started going with Larry up there, we never saw you anymore. And we didn't have any arguments before that either. There were no arguments.
There have been other
And when you got up to Larry in the cottage up there, we never saw you anymore. And we felt hurt. And I think we had a right to.
So then that was a bad point.
No, that isn't. We
Not
we
necessarily.
get to see the other kids once in a while. We never got to see you. And I think we felt bad. That was the whole thing. Because you spent that whole summer working one place or another. Out at the restaurant, and you were busy with your parish.
Is that the way the rest of you felt too? But his dad said that was your feelings?
What was the question?
Ted said that I wasn't the only one that had disapproved of our relationship, that everybody disapproved of this, the friendship that we had.
I don't feel that I disapproved of it. Honestly, I don't. You know, it's different. You know, I have been removed from this for 2 years, living in Eau Claire. I haven't been home as much.
I think it's necessary to have, for you to have lots of relationships with a lot of people, but you still, you know, have to keep everything in perspective. You have to have a certain amount of time for everyone, just not one thing. But you can't do that?
I can't have time for everybody. I mean, that speaks to me. All things to all people.
No,
that's
no.
That's what's pulling my Claire apart. But Mother, that's what I've tried to do. I've tried to placate the family, placate the parish, and placate the bishop, and placate all the rest of my friends. And then when any other problems come up, I jump from one thing to another. I try and run marriage encounter. I try and run, you know, and help out in things that I enjoy doing, like liturgy. And it's killing me.
Then you get your fingers in too many things. Get out of some of them things, marriage encounter and some of that. You're trying to overdo yourself.
No, this is dealing with, that's work. This is dealing with relationships. That's what you're talking about, Mother.
Relationships. I'm just saying, isn't there a way for you to work out your own personality where, like others do, that they spend a certain amount of time, this is what I'm going to do, but they still have a little time to come home once in a while? Do we crowd you so that you just feel that you can't do that?
I think that if I didn't feel, I'm made to feel at times as if it is my solemn duty, right, and responsibility to get myself home on a regular basis, to be there. And that's an expectation, that's a demand.
Do you feel that way, Pat, too? You have to come home at a certain time?
Well, I would say that,
Every Wednesday night.
well, lately, yeah, as long as you're buying. No, I think that there are times, yeah, you know, when it was expected of us to come home and stuff, but...
Like going to confession, is it?
Pardon me?
Is it like going to confession?
That's an interesting observation.
Come home and check in.
Come home and check in, yeah. I don't know, I
Pay
think
your
that...
dues.
Yeah. No, I really do think that is expected. It's an unwritten law in the household that's expected of all of us, to come home to come home on a regular basis. For a long time, you know, while I was at school, I didn't come home that much. And because I guess in my own mind I was saying, baloney, no one is going to tell me what to do all the time. And so I came home when I felt like it. You know, now I come home, you know, usually once a week. That's because we go out to eat it. But,
sister in the bike.
except when it's my turn to buy. Lost the checkbook. That's not true.
No, that's it.
But you have to, I guess, until I was ready to come home, I didn't come home. You know, I need, now, I enjoy coming home that often, so I come home that often. If I didn't feel like it, I wouldn't do it. And if you got mad at me, you got mad at me, but that's the way it is.
You learned how to laugh it off?
Well, see,
You
when,
said this morning?
yeah, when I run into a conflict, whether with family but this is myself, or at work or whatever, is I'll get mad, and I'll speak my piece, usually, but then the next day I have forgotten about it, and I just throw it out of my mind, and I go on to the next thing. But I don't hold it inside, well, I used to, but I don't hold it inside me for a long time.
So you're not afraid like they used to be of Catherine?
Pardon me?
You're not afraid of your family like they used to be of Catherine
Mary.
or Mary? Because it has some of that quality that you guys talk about.
Yeah, it does.
It does.
Mhm.
Sure does.
I know, I get that feeling because Carl's mother lives in Monroe, his folks do. In the struggle as to how much time I spend with one, as to how much time I spend with another, and I feel like if I spend half a day more with her this time, that they feel slighted. And then I'll try and make up for it, but I can't make up for it. I slighted them, and so it makes me feel like, oh, if this is the way it's gonna be, I won't come home, or else I'll just stay over there at Carl's mom's.
Ellen, do you have any reflections on that?
Well, with me living at home, I see mom and dad every day, so. And then
Kid
I
home more
don't
often,
have a
would you?
problem. No, it's more like, get out of here. I don't know, I guess I see it from everybody's viewpoint. I see, you know, I see when people are home, and I see when people leave, and I see, you know, the problems, but sometimes I feel like, well, I haven't seen the deep problem, the problems from way back, because I feel that I was too young to know the other parts of our family, like, you know, with Grandpa, I didn't get to know him very long, but I knew him long enough to know what a wonderful person he was, and the relationship he had with all of us, but in living at home, I just kind of see what happens and try and keep everybody sane and together. And when I see a problem happening with Mike, I'll run to Mike and talk to him for a while and say, you know, I don't like seeing fights. It's been my whole major thing. I don't like seeing everybody mad at each other. So what I used to do is, you know, if Mom and Dad were arguing with Mary Kay, I'd run to Mary Kay and say, you know, Mom and Dad, everything's fine, just, then I'd go to Pat, then I'd go to Mike. But I'm a lot like what Pat said too. If something happens with me and Mom and Dad, I straighten it out in my way. I forget, you know, then I have to forget about it the next day and go on. And it's worked with me because I get along with Mom and Dad wonderfully now. And, you know, I guess that's a part of growing up, I don't know. But,
Are you saying very carefully that you're isolated in the middle of the family?
Sometimes I am, I think. I don't know.
Because in a funny way, it sounds as though you've replaced Mike.
Oh, maybe, I don't know.
Try to keep the old folks from fighting.
War with each other all the time.
Oh, God.
No, I didn't say that. There's very seldom fighting in our house.
That's really true. It doesn't sound like it, but
Geez, it sounds like we fight all the time.
But when we do, we go at it.
Oh, you might as well have a good one. Get it over with.
See, that's the problem, is that I felt like we've never gotten it over with.
Well, what are we waiting for? Let's get it over with.
Who brought the gloves, huh?
Well,
Yeah.
that's kind of what we're here for, I think.
Throw the hatchets in and
I heard that. Where did I hear that? On the news yesterday, I guess. Somebody said, is there going to be peace in Beirut? And I said, no, probably the most important thing you can know about Beirut is that there will never be any peace. So maybe your wishes are just fragmentary.
God, I don't know why there can't be any peace.
No, I feel lots more hopeful about it than that. I think it's rather remarkable for as many people to be here as there are in this family. and that it took a lot of caring and a lot of courage to do it. It's not easy. I think it's hard. And I don't think it's going to be settled here today. I think a lot of things wait and happen to us after months sometimes. So,
You know, I think you may have to want to have it happen.
you do have to
Sure
want
you do.
to.
In a family, you have to want to have peace, and you have to want to care.
And everybody
first
has to
step
give
is
and
trust.
And
take.
everyone has to give. It has to be a
That's
give
right,
and
it can't
take.
be
It
just one or two, or everybody has to give and take.
Right.
And in the meantime,
Get out the shotguns.
where does that leave me?
Well, I think you have to think about everything that was said. Don't you have to just sort of rebuild?
What? Well, I don't know, I'm feeling very frustrated. I really am feeling very frustrated right now. I think we're just kind of skirting. I feel like the whole, we're just kind of, I don't know.
Well, who's got the solution?
Maybe it's all futile. Maybe we should just
Or is
all
there a
give up.
solution?
I think there is.
What is
Like
it?
Irma Bombeck said, guilt is the only thing that gives and gives and gives.
I think that I don't know. I'm kind of feeling frustrated too about time. I don't know where we're at. We're almost finished, or
No, we've got more.
We got 10 more minutes.
oh, jeez.
Why did you feel frustrated with what I said?
I don't think I felt frustrated. I mean, I do agree with that, Muriel. I think that it's wonderful that everybody was here. They all consented to be here. I don't have any sense that we've grown any closer. I think we've grown around the edges of this thing, and that we've not really heard each other. We've not really talked to each other, and maybe that's a good deal of my fault because of the fact that I haven't got out a little bit more exactly of what I'm saying. And I think, especially this last year, which has been so difficult for me, we've skirted that. I probably have. And that we haven't proceeded with that, I think it is wonderful that they were here, that we're all here, and I deeply appreciate that. I'm just feeling frustrated about the fact that I think we've got a ways to go. I have a ways to go. And I have a ways to go in my relationship with Dad and Mother. I sense Dad is very uptight right now. He's pounding back of the couch and he's shaking his foot like he does whenever he's very
That's my
upset.
habit, I do that all the
No,
time.
no, no. I've sat next to you for 31 years. I know when you're frustrated, like, what the hell did we go in there for? That was the, they didn't accomplish one goddamn thing.
Maybe you're feeling frustrated because you expected more to be accomplished here than your expectations were too great for this. I think that by coming into this session, I think that you're more aware of how you're feeling and what you're feeling. And I think now we can all sit down and think about it, run it through our own minds, and sit down and talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
I think maybe if you were expecting to have everything take care of itself this afternoon, I think you were expecting too much, and maybe that's why you're feeling frustrated.
Yeah.
You have dreams for a new 10 Commandments. The last 10 didn't work all that well.
Yeah. I think too that I also I still have a lot of anger about the problems that occurred between us and my relationship with Larry. Then the process of that, trying to fight all these battles out and keep everyone all placated.
I think that's 90% of it.
I don't want to blame it. I think it would be easy to dump it all on there. I don't think Larry is the focus of this thing. I really don't. But I still have a good deal of anger because I think what was acted out in that whole scene was a problem that has existed between us, between me and the family for a long time. It has been the fruit of many fights and concerns and problems, or the fruit of just dead silence. So much so that I was desperately afraid to come home and deal with this and get the whole thing out on the table. What exactly are you people angry about? I never did that. I never found out what you were so angry about. I had my suspicions. But I never did find out. I never came home because I knew if I went home, the damn windows would blow out of the house. And Grandma just turned off the television louder, you know? And we couldn't talk anymore. And you would have your opinion, and if I didn't respond to your opinion in a positive way and say, this is the way, okay, I'm going to do it your way.
And vice versa.
Then, you know, there was no talking about it. You had your opinion, I had mine. To the hell with it.
Two bull-headed Swiss.
And yet, I don't think you sensed the meaning or how important that was, that relationship was to me. Oh, and maybe I was, you know, maybe I flew off and I got very involved and all that stuff. Well, then fine. Let me do that once. Oh no, we gotta take Mike back in, you know, because Mike's the priest and we gotta hang on to him, because if we don't hang on to him, he might get away from us. He might do something real wild and crazy, and stupid, and embarrass us all.
Well, I truthfully didn't think we ever lost you.
Well, you apparently were very afraid you were going to.
That's right.
Then they would get to heaven,
Yeah.
Because they had lost the priest.
of course. He wasn't going to bribe them. God let him in.
Well, I just get a sense that my relationship in this family is so insecure that everybody goes into a panic the minute that's what happened. Everybody got in a panic. Everybody was excited. Alan was running back and forth. We quit talking, or when we did talk on the phone, we were, we were pounding the fists and screaming at one another. I would sit down at the table and break into tears and fall apart. I have never cried so much over anything in my whole life as I did over this. And the more we fought, the more I did feel like I don't give a damn. The more I wanted to be isolated from you. The higher the demands on me to break up my friendship with Larry, the more I didn't give a damn. I didn't want to come home. Everything was wonderful the first year. It turned sour the second year after you had stayed up there during the summer. In that process of period of time, everyone knew there was something wrong with me. I was riding on a razor's edge. And I was coming to the point where I was just furious and I was full of rage all the time. And I guess I still am. And then I began to fight that battle out with him. And And so, here I am, middle of isolation again. I'd like to tell you more about myself, but I guess I'm still afraid to. Why am I afraid to tell you who I am? Because if I tell you who I am and you reject me, I'm all I've got.
Maybe that's all you have anyway.
No, maybe. That's how the next section starts.
Maybe that's the most important thing.
Why would we reject you for who you are? Like Mary Kay said earlier, about her relationship with Carl. I think that every family has that, or should have that. I think we do. that, well, I know I do, that if, you know, I'll still love you for no matter what you do to me or to anybody else, you're still my brother.
It'll never change.
No.
No one
You're
can,
still
no one
our
can take
son.
that from me.
And we're gonna love you just the same.
That's right.
Think we're gonna throw you out of the house? No way. You're our own flesh and blood. Hell, you're my son.
Then they'd be isolated.
That's right.
We'd be isolated too.
Be the biggest loss we ever had.
No way on God's green earth am I gonna throw any of my kids out. I love them too much.
What about if I told you I was gay?
That what?
I was gay.
I still wouldn't throw you out of the house. No way. Still mine.
None of us would. It's ridiculous. Really. You're still our son. Same thing as if you left the priesthood. You're still our son. We still live in Monroe. We still got a family. We're still all together. That's the most important thing.
I could
We
think
all
you're
love
making
each
a
other.
mountain out of a molehill.
All I think we want to do is help.
I don't think I'm making a mountain out of a molehill. Because if I was, then I wouldn't have this intensity of feeling, and I would not have taken the most gigantic risk of my life in calling the chips in and getting everybody in here. You don't know how much I anguished over making this decision and calling Dr. Whitaker. I got off the phone with him and realized that I was going to have to go around to every one of the family members and ask them if they would be here, to Wilbur and to Larry. I had no idea whether anybody would come. Throw a party, you know, when is anybody going to show up? I went in and I threw up.
Well, you talked to us. We said we'd come.
Oh, that was a great experience. It was a wonderful experience. We really talked things out. But I know what you, I guess I'm also hearing what I'm not listening totally to what you're saying too, that I'm making a mountain out of a molehill about me. And my
Because we're
social
You
part of me.
think some of us don't care for you, you're wrong. We love you dearly.
I know.
Could even be that we all love each other too much. I don't know how you can do that.
But it's possible
Possible.
with love, I think, to take something and to squish it. Because you want to hang on to it so bad.
It was 6 for so long. You know, it was.
And number 7 had, I think, a
That's
hard time
right.
breaking in.
Yeah, hard stuff.
It was a big step for you.
I think part of that problem is, speaking for my brothers and their problems they've had, and his side of the family, and the disasters and all those things. I think we just wanted to protect you kids from what's happened to some of those other families. And with that, we grew a little, maybe too close, I don't know.
Probably did.
'Cause
And then
know-
when you
know,
saw
all
me
of-
develop a very close relationship with Larry, you tried to torpedo it. You would ignore him, you would have nothing to do with him.
well,
When
maybe
you
that
walked
was a
into the
mistake.
house and you wouldn't even talk to him, I pulled you upstairs at confirmation and I said, please, let's make a decision,
Yeah.
in front of me. I went through hell, Mother.
I know you did, dear. I know.
It was awful to live
I know.
through that.
I know.
And in the
then
meantime,
you
I
should've-
wasn't dealing with you because I was so damn afraid of both of you.
No, I
That I was
so-
going to run into a buzzsaw when I went home. So I sat and I fought the thing out with Larry. And Wilbur kept saying to me, why in the hell don't you deal with the people you should? He couldn't. He could have kicked me all the way to Monroe and I still wouldn't have said anything. And then finally I wouldn't listen to Larry anymore. We quit talking. Our relationship collapsed. And I don't blame him for what he put up with in me.
He was open toes like that. He'd had a sore foot by the time he got tomorrow. We're gonna have to stop because I'm very specific about this because I don't want you guys to go beyond what you'd contracted for. I think that time sequence is very important. And I want to do the same thing I did this morning. I would like you to not talk to each other or anybody else about it for like 48 hours. That each one of you cook inside your own heads, because this is an important experience. And then after 48 hours, you let happen what happens. And if we can be part of it again, say so. But don't change things too fast. You're human beings, and this has been going on a long, long while. And change is a very scary business. So I get married, you might never get over it. Next week it'll be 47 years, and I don't know how it can stand.
So what you're saying is that the possibility exists for us to get together again?
Of course, of course. You can get together with us or without us. You can go through this whole damn 4 hours again by machine.
A video.
I'm not sure it wouldn't be worse than watching the Olympics by machine, but it's available.
Okay. Think about it and be in touch, I guess.
How do you feel, Michael, right now? Are you frustrated, satisfied?
I think I needed to say the gay thing. I needed to get, that was building up to the point where I was going to explode if I didn't say that pretty soon. And I was waiting for all kinds of gigantic reactions when Dad says, "Dad, you think I'm going to throw you out?"
You
But I
don't
also,
know us very well. I guess we don't know each other very well.
but I feel much better also knowing that we do have the possibility after we think this out and sort it out to be able to be together again with you guys.
No problem.
So,
Oh,
what do you think?
but
I think it'd be a good idea.
to have another one?
Yeah.